Welcome to admin. Annie, go ahead with roll call.
Good morning. Online, we have Allison France, Brenna Davis, Carrie Powers, Cheryl Hartman, Christina Dewar, Alicia Buckholtz, and MCAT. In 206, it looks like we have Jacob Allington, Chris Lounsbury, Ann Hughes, Commissioner Strohmeyer, and Vero. And I can't see who's on the other side of Chris. I'm sorry.
Right, that's our commissioner right along today. That is Larry from the East Missoula Community Council.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Andrew Chorney joined us as well.
And Andrew Chorney. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, do you have this, Larry? Okay, there we go. Yeah. So we're looking at the consent agenda. And is there anything that needs to be pulled out or discussed separately? Maybe a shout out to the Public Works crew for securing a fantastic deal for those 7 trucks.
Yes, that is a good deal. Screaming. I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Any further discussion? Okay, I second that, and I forgot Slotnick's not here. All in favor? Aye. Our only action item.
Yeah, it's me today.
Okay.
So commissioners, this is a request to authorize Shane Stack, our Chief Public Works Officer, to sign some of the contracts for some of the equipment that he is purchasing. So you see you have a couple of those before you today, but there are a few more pieces of equipment that they're going to be purchasing that were all in your adopted fiscal year 25 budget. You already have done those. You already approved the capital improvement plan that includes the purchase of those. So these are just the kind of small agreements that we have with the agencies where we're purchasing these. So no additional budget authority, none of that. It would just allow us to get those contracts through. They will still go through legal review and risk review like everything else. It will just allow us to get some of those. This particular one you were mentioning, the deal for the double axle truck or the single axle plow trucks that we're getting from Salt Lake City, Utah, kind of is the example of that. The turnaround time for those is really tight because we buy them through an auction process, public auction process, and that sometimes means that we can't get contracts to you. And you are out for the next several weeks as you travel, and so we want to make sure that Shane can secure the rest of those agreements and not lose out on those deals. So
Didn't
we're
we
asking.
do this before,
We-
or is this, we just
we
didn't
nor-
cover?
We normally only do it for a fixed period of time because we don't want authority to go on forever because contracts should come to the
thank
Board
you.
of County Commissioners. And so this would just, again, be an authorization through the end of this fiscal year to just make sure that we can close on those contracts where you guys have some pretty intense travel weeks coming up where you won't be available for the next couple of months. And so we just want to make sure that we can get those pieces of equipment. So this would just do that through the end of the annual budget.
Thanks for looking at our calendars and thinking ahead.
Luckily Shane did that. I'm just the one presenting.
Okay, I move that we authorize the Chief Public Works Officer to do as stated.
Second, any further discussion or public comment? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Is
Thank you for that.
there any correspondence?
Don't think we have any today.
Okay, legislative update.
Yeah, I have a couple of bills that I wanted to talk to you about today and get your input on, specifically commissioners. I will start with SB 307. And SB 307 was just introduced yesterday, so it's a brand new bill, and it is a bill called an act revising the distribution of marijuana tax revenue at the state. You might recall that marijuana tax revenue at the state has become a contentious issue since the passing of both recreational and medical marijuana in the state of Montana, and that during the last legislative session, not the one we're in right now, there was a request to move all of the funding that is currently divided between the state general fund, conservation, veteran services, and some other ancillary pieces all to the state general fund, and then allow the state general fund to distribute money to programs as they saw fit. This bill is similar to that bill from the last legislative session. The only difference is it specifically sets up the funds to go to the general fund and then for law enforcement purposes. And so kind of the larger take on this is it would take the current distribution, which I'm scrolling really quickly to get to the current distribution, which is, there it is. $6 million to the what's known as the Heart Fund, and so that's the governor's fund for mental health. 20%, which goes to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, used for the funding of wildlife habitat. So that's the conservation piece. 4% to state parks, 4% to trails and recreation, 4% to non-game wildlife accounts. I'm not sure what those are. And then 3% or $200,000 for veteran services. Basically moves all of that out. It moves 50% to the general fund, 24% to the Heart, so it would be more funding than the Heart Fund currently gets, 16% to marijuana prevention, and 8% to marijuana law enforcement operations. So it would remove kind of veterans affairs and all of the conservation and wildlife from that. Normally, we don't comment on state funding bills that impact, right, just the way the state moves around money, but because conservation is a strong value for Missoula County, and we do a lot thanks to our citizens through open space bonds and other things, we did actually take a position during the last legislative session on the idea of moving money away from conservation efforts statewide, because this is the primary funding source for conservation efforts statewide. So the question is just this year, where is the commission on this? Is this something that you would like to weigh in on? Do we stand back from this where this is a state funding issue, moving state money?
Is this the one where we've actually been asked to not weigh in?
This is brand new and was dropped yesterday, so
Is there something similar related to?
There have been other bills, yes, so far this session that have attempted to move marijuana.
What's different maybe about this one than
This
those?
this one, so the other one moved it all to the general fund, similar to the last legislative session. This one moves the money to two accounts, one for prevention and one for law enforcement.
So
Same problem though, it defunds.
But with the other ones,
Bless you.
Thank you, sorry.
were we requested by some of the conservation advocates to not weigh in?
Yes,
In
and
which
that,
case would the
With the-
same principle would apply.
potentially, yes,
And in both cases, it's gutting conservation funding.
It is. I mean, so this might be a question you may want to ask
Yeah, I feel like
your
we need to
contacts.
get more information.
on that before you make a decision, but this is, like I said, this is SB 307. And again, we have both weighed in the past and not weighed in the past, so.
So who was it? Can you get us who reached out to us on the other bills?
It was League of Conservation Voters who reached out last time. I can try and find the email that was the specific person.
Okay,
Well, last time as in this session,
As in
the
this
other
session,
bills.
on the other bill, yes.
Yes, that would be good
Yeah.
because I would see this in the same vein as that.
the
And maybe
previous two.
they've just not seen this.
Yeah, again, it just came out yesterday, so it is very possible that they have not
Okay.
yet seen this.
When is it, I mean, is there a schedule for it or?
It is not yet scheduled for hearing, or at least it wasn't as of this morning.
It was just referred to committee yesterday.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully.
No hearing date set.
Okay.
Or we could amend it and have a reefers for rail section. So,
Rails pot for potholes.
Yeah, yeah.
All kinds of opportunities for good verbiage.
okay.
The second one is a little bit more, I'm going to call it nebulous than that one is. And this is House Bill 466. And this is basically creates a categorical exclusion from the Montana Environmental Protection Act, or MEPA, specifically for the Department of Administration and the Department of Administration for Construction and Maintenance of State Lands, and to the Department of Commerce for historic preservation grants. So it basically exempt historic preservation grants from MEPA standards through the categorical exclusion process, and it would exempt the Department of Administration, which basically has oversight of all state buildings except those that are specifically assigned to a department. So they don't, for example, have Department of Corrections buildings, as one example, from the MEPA process, but it would for all other state buildings. I think for most other state buildings, it's really Helena, that Lewis and Clark County, that has most other state buildings. There are a few others scattered around the state, but the vast majority of Department of Administration buildings are there. The historical grants obviously are all over the state. Missoula County's Historical Museum at the Fort has received grants in the past. That's why I'm bringing it up. We have a grant this year for the Engen building, potentially in the historical grants category. Environmental review is not, again, It's not something that the county does. It's done by the state Department of Environmental Quality. So it's not necessarily something, but again, because we've been the recipient of grants, I did reach out. I've not heard back yet, but did reach out about whether we think this has been an impact in the past. I haven't heard back yet. I do not remember any times where we've had a grant run into issues around MEPA, but categorical exclusions in general are sometimes contentious issues. This idea of exempting government from the process that we make the public go through when they're doing work. So did want to chat with you about whether or not this is an area, again, the state exempting itself, whether we want to weigh in.
State is only exempting itself.
Department, and only two departments, Department of Administration and Historic Preservation grants, which I believe are through Department of Commerce, maybe?
I don't know.
So,
Who is the
Yeah.
bill sponsor?
That is John Fitzpatrick.
yeah, one of the Fitzpatricks, who is our
Oh.
delegation.
Who's in our delegation and who heads up
He's taken
section,
a small section.
who heads up section D, I want to say, which these grants run through that committee.
Section, yes, sexy name.
Yeah, I was gonna say, state budget is done by letters, so.
Um,
Nope. Section F,
Section O, even better.
long range planning.
Yeah.
Section O.
So
the sort of thing we
Is there,
spend-
a particular issue that this came
No,
about on,
it-
or what?
Not that I understand. My understanding from listening to a little bit of the section F when we were testifying in front of our grants is there have been some concerns. Again, I've not been able to find an instance in Missoula County, but I am waiting to hear back where they've run into an issue where there's been a grant award and then they've run afoul of
MEPA.
MEPA and not been able to complete the work. So I don't believe we've ever had that issue in Missoula County. So again, maybe an area where we just want to let the state do its own thing, but we do have a grant in front of
Yeah,
this year.
can we just watch it? Or
Yep,
is it?
absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I'd be inclined to do that.
Okay. The last one is Senate Bill 289, Representative, or I'm going to get this wrong. Did Denley become is he a representative this year or a senator? Senator Logie introduced, and this bill is a bill that we are going to support. This actually would allow Missoula County to request information from the state of Montana Department of Revenue when they make an adjustment in certified taxable values of more than $1.5 million for any property. So biggest example of this is when centrally assessed gets changed, which are the ones that get changed by amounts usually of $1.5 million or more. It would allow us to request information from the state on why that exemption or adjustment was granted. And we would be allowed access to anything that would be considered public information. So not proprietary information that might be specific.
We used to have this power, right?
Well,
Not
it used to be a
power, but it
public
used to be a
process where
public-
these adjustments occurred in a public meeting. They no longer do. They occur directly between the Department of Administration and folks applying for the exemption. And so they do not happen in a public process anymore. And so this, in essence, would allow us the opportunity to still request the information that previously would have been available in that public meeting. Again, not the proprietary things that a business might share.
So they're still not public, but it's up to the counties to request.
Right, and we would get notified when they were going to make an adjustment for any property that was greater than
Okay, so it's
1.5
not
million.
like
So
we
we
have
would be
to-
able to ask specifically about that adjustment.
I'm sorry, what was the amount?
This one is Senate Bill 289,
Oh, but the triggering amount?
1.5 million. So we're going to support that bill, obviously,
Yes.
because it allows us access to that, which will be helpful when we're talking about budget and we get some of those late adjustments to certified
Thank you,
taxable
Louise.
values.
Yeah.
It's prudent.
Yeah. Something he actually discussed a little bit, the concept of this idea at our get together before the legislative session. So those were the three bills that I have for you guys today. They're bills that you guys would like to discuss.
There's press conference
So-
here at 11. Are you
Yeah.
zooming into that?
I am, but I haven't heard anything else about that. The LOPTRA, the Local Option Property Tax Relief Act.
Yeah, House Bill 489, which is the local option
Property tax.
Property tax
reduction?
Reduction Act. Thanks, Ann. Another acronym for us to learn. And so what this would do would allow local voters to decide if they wanted to impose a tax on tourist-specific businesses in their county that would then be used 100% for property tax relief. So it would tax things such as restaurant sales, guide services, beer and wine sales. And I'm missing another major category there, as well as take a portion of the revenue for rental car, the existing rental car tax and the existing bed tax, and basically buy down property taxes in the counties that pass this. Again, it would be a required vote of the citizens. As part of that resolution and ballot language that go out to them would be the specific items that were going to be authorized to be taxed. And then a certification process where homeowners and renters, people who own long-term rentals, would be able to certify so that we would then apply that property tax reduction to those property tax bills before they were sent as a line item. So for example, if your total property tax bill were $6,000, you would then below that have a line item that would show the amount of rebate that you're getting for that, which would then reduce each one of the categories of taxes that you're paying so that each taxing jurisdiction in essence is made whole, but the benefit is kind of shared across the taxing jurisdictions. So, and there's, as Wendy just mentioned, and Dave mentioned, there's a press conference at 11 o'clock at the state capitol, which is also available on Zoom.
Watch that, Larry. I've got a conference room for us, so.
And Annie, you had your hand up.
I'm sorry. I missed telling you guys, my apologies, that item number 3 on the consent agenda for Ken Marshall and the Spectrum Communications was postponed. The contract wasn't quite ready, so we'll rehear that one on February 20th. So on consent agenda items, the motion should just be to approve all of them, excluding number 3, which is postponed.
Do we need to do another?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you have some concern about that. I
No.
think we would just reflect that your motion.
Thank you.
was originally.
Just back on the HB 489, we have a good selection of bipartisan sponsors, co-sponsors of the bill, which is great to see.
It's coming, Senator Oblander from Billings and Representative France. Is it Representative Oblander or Senator? I apologize.
It's representative.
Representative.
Bill.
I didn't know if they'd already secured a Senate sponsor, so.
Nope. But we have Representative Strand, Representative Cochran, Representative Marshall, Fern, Logie, Cohenauer, France, Keogh, Nikolakakos, and Darling.
Great.
So that will be, the press conference will be at 11 and then we'll wait for the bill hearing.
Okay.
All right. I think that's all we have then for today, as far as the legislature goes.
Larry, do you have any questions, observations, suggestions, needs or wants?
Jokes.
Jokes?
Well, my first was, I didn't realize, and I'm just, that's why I do
And we
this,
can
right?
carry on after we
Oh.
adjourn here too.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, I guess we're adjourning. Have a great rest of your morning, everyone.
We can talk.
Goodbye.
Sorry.